think I should, okay. All right, it is 5:30 p.m. and I now call to order the Grand Island Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the September 9th, 2021 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it in to us so that you may be recognized during the request to address the board part of our meeting. If you have not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the boardroom. We realized there was a discrepancy last month in the collection of the forms to address the board. We have put new protocols in place so that won't happen in the future. In order to rectify the discrepancy last month, we have decided to make a one-time adjustment, and all those who completed a form and thought they were able to speak at the last Board of Education meeting will speak tonight. Mrs. Simmons, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Hinkle?
Present.
Mrs. Albers? Mr. Brown is given prior notice of his absence, and absence is excused. Mrs. Juergens? Mr. Barsonis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Here.
Ms. Wolf?
Here.
Dr. Bros?
Here.
Mr. Helinski?
Here.
Thank you. Agenda item 3 is our mission statement. Mr. Hawley, will you please read that for us?
Every student, every day a success. In educating students, we teach hearts as well as minds. Student commitments. Within the school district of Grand Island, every student will be taught to read, write, and communicate effectively, solve problems, acquire and apply knowledge, and demonstrate mastery through performance to the best of that student's ability. Every student will be treated with fairness and dignity. Every student will be honored for their unique qualities and backgrounds. Every student will experience a sense of belonging and contribution and success, and every student will develop responsibility and show respect for others as well as oneself.
Thank you. Agenda item 4 is our consent agenda. 4.1 are the minutes from the previous month's meeting. 4.2 claims as submitted. 4.3 staff adjustments as submitted. 4.4 treasurer's report as submitted. 4.5 are our policies, starting with 2111 board operating principles on first read, 2210 board organizational meeting on first read, 2216 Board of Education student member on first read, 2220 board officers first read, 4312 internal controls for federal and state awards first read, 4480 contracts, agreements, and memorandums of understanding on first read, 7705 special education policies on first read, 8320 compulsory attendance ages first read, 9420 distribution of advertising and promotional first read, 2230 board committees final read, and purchasing guidelines fiscal year 22-21 first and final read. 4.6 is the surplus property listing, 4.7 are change orders as documented, and 4.8 is approval of agenda as submitted. Excuse me. This is the consent agenda as published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the consent agenda? Does anyone have a potential conflict of interest on agenda item 5.2? If so, please state the check number that you'll be abstaining from voting on. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Barsonis. Any discussion? Please vote. All right, thank you very much. All right. Sorry, I gotta get back through yours. Now, we have some special recognitions. This is always a fun time for us. And we are going to start with the oath of office for our new Board of Education student representative, Dr. Dexter.
And Mr. Gilbertson is going to introduce our new student representative.
Good evening, Madam President Hinkle, board members. It's my pleasure to introduce Isabella Prada Gomez as the student representative to the Board of Education for the 2021-2022 school year. Isabella is a delightful young lady that has a lot of tenacity, which keeps her very focused on her dreams, her goals, her college and career readiness. Here are some facts that I know about Isabella that I'd like to share with you tonight. Isabella attended Grand Island Public Schools for her entire school career thus far, attending Lincoln Elementary for preschool, moving on to Kinnickram Elementary, then to Walnut. She was a Wildcat, and now at the great high school, the Academies of Grand Island Senior High. Isabella is the proud daughter of Anastasia Gomez Ronhel and Jose Luis Prado, and they're here tonight, I believe. Let's have them stand and give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. Isabella has 3 older siblings that have graduated from senior high as well. So these fine parents have been GIPS parents for 17 years. Isabella is currently enrolled in the agribusiness pathway, and she hopes, get this, she hopes to pursue marine biology. And she'll get to that later, maybe. Throughout high school, she has taken 5 honors courses. She is currently enrolled in 5 AP courses for a grand total of 8 AP classes. Science obviously is her favorite subject. She can't get enough of science, she's told me. She's also a current student council member and the vice president of the National Honor Society. She is also an active participant in the advisory board for the Academy of Business and Communication. And I know that I'm speaking for the entire amazing staff at Grand Island Senior High when I say there's no doubt she's going to be a great contributor to the Board of Education. So with that, I will have Isabella stand and come on up here. Let's give her a round of applause. Isabella. We're going to do this.
Oh, okay.
You want to go right over here?
Yes.
You're good, you're good, you're good. Good, let's stand right here. School board members, before taking office, shall take and sign the following oath of affirmation. So if you will repeat after me. I, Isabella Prado Gomez, do solemnly swear
I, Isabella Prado Gomez, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
That I take this obligation freely and without mental reservations or for purposes or evasion.
that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservations or for purposes or evasions,
And that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of the School District of Grand Island,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of the School District of Grand Island,
according to law, to the best of my ability.
according to law, to the best of my ability.
And I do further swear that
And I do further swear that
I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or violence.
I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by the force or violence.
And that during such time that I am in this position,
And that during such time that I am in this position,
I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or violence.
I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or violence.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you and welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Easy to sign there. that's probably going to be the hardest part. You did a fine job. I need one more signature. Same thing, but just. And you can keep this.
Oh, okay.
And then I think you'll share this when you are seated,
Or
Mr. Gilbertson, or now?
I think out. Yeah.
When she's seated? Yeah. So when you're seated at your seat over there, right? Nope, oh, sorry,
Okay.
right here. There's your nameplate and everything.
Okay.
And then you'll have a time to share on the agenda.
Okay.
Like, if you want to say something out beside your report, you can now.
Okay, great. Well, hello. Before I begin, I would like to say that I'm very excited and proud to be the student board representative. Not only am I representing Grand Island Public Schools as a whole, but the students that I am representing are my own peers and classmates. In preparation for this role, I have been able to ask my classmates overall concerns and questions. I hope I would bring more representation for students walking into the doors of Grand Island Public Schools. That being, throughout the summer, I spent time volunteering at the Literacy Council, and I was able to teach English to adults. I later took the role of being a teacher for a small health literacy classroom. I even landed the opportunity to attend the Congress of the National Academy of Future Physicians and Medical Scientists. I was able to listen to Dr. Mario Capecchi and Harvard professors. My nomination was signed by Dr. Mario Capecchi, winner of the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Science Director of the Congress. I was able to hear teen prodigies and Ivy League professors. As I stand here today, I'm only reminded that earlier in my education, in preschool, I once entered this very building for a hearing test. Needless to say, as a 4-year-old, I was shy and wouldn't communicate with my own teachers. I could hear them, I just chose not to speak. To make light of it today, here I am standing before you as the voice of Grand Island Public Schools. Thank you.
That's awesome, thank you. And do you want to introduce, I'm assuming 2 of your sisters are here as well?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to introduce them?
Yes, I have Anna,
Okay,
and then I have Andrea. Now, I have another sister who's not present, but they're also all graduating from Grand Island Senior High.
that is so amazing. And parents, you should be very proud of your daughter. We're so excited to have her be with us this year, and we always learn, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. We are always so excited to have a student rep because it brings so much more to us as a board and makes us understand what we're doing and how it makes a difference. And so thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We know you're busy, obviously, so we're very appreciative. So thank you. All right. Our next recognition is 5.2 Advanced Placement Recognition, Mr. Gilbertson and Ms. Crow. Is that right? Both of you?
Get all plugged in here. Okay, good evening, Dr. Grover and members of the board. Thank you for giving Mr. Gilbertson and I the opportunity to be here tonight. We're going to share just a little bit of data about our AP administration from last spring, and then we are going to recognize an impressive number of students who demonstrated excellence on their AP assessments. We would love to have been able to have the students we're recognizing here with us tonight, but really due to the sheer numbers, with the pandemic, we mailed them their certificates, and we've invited them to be here and join us via our YouTube to kind of join in the celebration as best they can. So we're going to start off with just a little bit of data here about the administration. This is a 5-year score summary, and you'll see here on the left, this graph represents the percent of the total AP students who achieved scores of 3 or greater. And what I really kind of get excited about here, we've been hovering around 50% for the last couple of years, and I really think that's a celebration when you consider the upheaval that the pandemic has caused, that our students have been able to maintain that level of excellence. So I think that's something to really be proud of. Over here on the right, we've got 5 years represented here that show our total number of AP students who participated in the exams and the number of exams that they took. and then again, the AP students with scores of 3 or greater, and the percent of students that represents. So we had 175 students participate in exams this year, and they took a total of 290 exams. This is just a little bit of a different breakdown of the data. This shows of those 175 students and 290 exams, how that broke down in terms of scoring, if it resulted in a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So this is the number of exams that represents the percentage, and then the number of students that represents. And then I kind of get excited about these next 2 slides because they show the subject totals. This really demonstrates the wide variety of exams that our students are participating in. Everything from 3D art and design to computer science to world history and kind of everything in between. And then this over here, the total exams, I think kind of can give you an idea of where our students are participating most. So we've got, for example, highly represented in calculus and chemistry, English language. Oops, somehow I went too far there. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where slide 2 went, but anyway, world history is also heavily represented, so you can see that our students are participating in a wide variety of exams very successfully. So, out of all those exams, we are recognizing 46 students, which I think is very impressive. We kind of group them by their highest honor, so we have 14 students who scored a 4 on 1 or more assessments. We have 3 students who scored a 5. We have 18 AP scholars, 8 AP scholars with honor, and 3 AP scholars with distinction. So I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Gilbertson, and he is going to recognize those students and kind of describe what each of those honors really means.
Hello again, and I believe we have students, we've invited them to join us virtually for this, so I will read the names slowly. A score of 4 on the AP test, for last year, 2021. We have Alejandro Amador, Tia Broadwell, Bailey Brooks, Lizer Chi, Zachary Cloutier, Riley Deegan, Porter Dickinson, Danielle Gutierrez, Emianne Johnson, Alaya More, Elizabeth Priest, Monica Salmonago, Devier Stevenson, Omar Velasquez. Moving on to the score of 5, 3 students that we celebrate and recognize tonight: Sage McCallum, Mason Messmer, Bishop Plackey. And a little more detail on the AP Scholar Award. These are students that have scored 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams, so quite an honor. Wilbur Aguilar, Gage Brockmeyer, Maya Brown, Cameron Carlson, Carly Gartner, Alexander Hornaday, Aiden Yeager, Aiden Keys, Adrian Lazalde, Ethan Mesmer, Herman Mercia Martinez, Julia Myers, Grant O'Connor, Aubrey Pickup, Lily Reed, Xavier Roundy, Jacob Shager, Jerome Silva. And another AP Scholar Award with honors is those students that scored 3 or higher on 4 or more exams. These students include Kendall Bartling, you should know him well, John Comer, Colin Havel, William Johnson, Kale Kingery, Lillian Miller, Bryce Cedars, and Jacob Staub. And there's one more. The AP Scholars with Distinction. And these are students that scored 3 or higher on 5 or more AP exams. Amazing feat, and we surely want to recognize them tonight. Raymond Hansen, Ann Martinez, and Emma Smith. Let's give all these students a huge round of applause.
Yes, that is always so impressive, and you're right, with the challenges they've had the last 2 years, we're appreciative. And I know a lot of them are seniors who graduated already, so even if we invited them, they couldn't be here, it's just the timing. But hopefully they appreciate the certificate and know that we recognize them and appreciate what they've done, so.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 6. And let's see here. We realized there was a discrepancy last month, as I mentioned earlier in the introductions, in the collections of form to address the board. We have put new protocols in place, so that won't happen in the future. And in order to rectify the discrepancy last month, we've decided to make a one-time adjustment and allow those who completed a form and thought they would be able to speak tonight. Whoops, sorry. So just a reminder, on some of our protocols, each person addressing the board will be allowed 5 minutes. The Board of Education has a prerogative to limit speaking to 3 minutes when there are 3 or more patrons, and so we will have 3 minutes tonight. We will allocate up to 30 minutes for addressing the board at each regular board meeting. Please face the board and not the audience when you speak. We want to hear what is being said, so we ask that the audience refrain from making comments or sounds that make it hard to hear the speaker. And I know we all are wearing masks, but these mics are very sensitive, so don't feel like you have to take them down or pull them down, because we can hear you just fine when they're up. No signs are allowed in the boardroom. We will not engage in dialogue with patrons presenting to the board. The purpose of the request to address the board is for us to listen to patrons. The board president and superintendent will identify staff to follow up on any information that is requested from patrons when necessary. At regular business meetings, any school district-related matter can be presented to the board, but only agenda items can be acted upon during a given meeting. And at special meetings, comments are limited to the subject of action items on the meeting's agenda. Speakers will not be permitted to make defamatory comments or use abusive or vulgar language, and expressions of personal complaints about staff or students are discouraged at public meetings. Concerns about individuals should be brought to the attention of the appropriate administrative authority. Specific buildings or program concerns should be brought to the attention of the building principal or program supervisor. Mrs. Albers.
Motion to approve 30 minutes to the regularly scheduled request to address the board and to allow those who wanted to speak at the August 12th, 2021 meeting to speak now.
And is there a second? I think I heard Mr. Barsonis first. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, so our first speaker is Kelly Lepler. You want to come to the podium, state your name and address.
I'm Kelly Lepler, and I'm a very concerned mother of 2 residing in Grand Island. I'm bringing to the attention, I do understand that some voting on a few things were talked about at a previous meeting, and I did submit in writing to each one of the board members a letter of what I would be speaking about last week. My children and all other persons under the age of 19 in the state are children. They're not adults, nor are considered adults by the law of this land. They are under the care, rules, laws, and responsibility of their parents or guardians. Even as young adults supporting themselves, parents or guardians entrust their children to the care of the schools and its staff and board members. At the moment they enter the school property, It is under the understanding and presumption that these children's best interest, well-being, education, learning, are subject matter are within the realm of what the parent or guardian deems to be appropriate and imperative for their future. CRT and CSE are both attempting to undermine parents and guardians, exposing or overexposing these youth to self-destruction, irreversible mental or possibly physical damage. Also, they are encouraging hatred and division, alienation, judgment, blame, inferiority, and promotes racism. They are impeding on religious freedoms against many religious beliefs. They discourage modesty and purity, childhood, and encourage promiscuity, perversion, mischief, unacceptance, and insecurity. All persons are entitled to liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and inalienable rights, as born in this country or becoming citizens themselves. These children and young adults, parents and guardians, are not any of your children. By allowing these theories and teachings and views and perceptions to enter any public or private school entity is against the constitutional rights of all persons. Children are naive until they have been told or commanded or shown to be otherwise. Private sexual issues or topics are not the responsibility of the schools or any school staff member or this board. In addition, it is the responsibility of any school, staff, club, or not the responsibility of them to impose on all students that which is not accepted by the majority or sought to be equitable or biased in any form regardless of history or perceived favoritism. We all are in this together, and everyone is important and needed and gifted differently. It's really, truly is amazing that we all are in this melting pot in this community, and the prosperity that all have the opportunity to achieve. Thank you.
And that reminds me, I apologize, I failed to mention that you'll see, the speakers will see the green light, and then at 2 minutes, you'll see a yellow light, and then at 1 minute, the red. Is that correct? Sorry.
At the 3-minute start, the light will turn green. When there are 2 minutes left, it will turn a solid yellow. When there's 1 minute left, it will blink yellow, and then at the end, it will turn red.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Sorry, and I failed to mention that. Our next speaker is Jason Pagel.
So I want to speak on the Safe Return to Schools policy that was adopted last time, and I did comment on when it was set out in late July. And I know you guys are attempting to do the correct thing. One thing I do want to point out, though, or a couple things, I suppose, is that masking is still questionable as far as its effectiveness in stopping the spread of COVID-19. Some examples of that would be if you look at the states of Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, maybe even in Japan, where there's high cases and they've had some of the most harsh or severe lockdowns or masking requirements and whatnot. So those are just some things to look at. Secondly, according to, I believe, CDC, the most recent data I could find is that kids from age 0 to 19 have a 0.003% chance of dying from COVID-19, which is very small. Not that it's not important. If you have a child that has anything wrong with them, as a parent, it's very scary and frustrating. So I'm not putting that to the side. Just an example of, in most countries, United Kingdom, Ireland, Scandinavia, Netherlands, Switzerland, Italy, and many other places, there are no mask mandates for those. They've been doing studies and so on and so forth there to show, the masking is only an issue here in the United States. CDC did a study November, December in Georgia, 93,000 students, 169 different school systems, and all the mitigation efforts, masking, plexiglass, all that stuff, there was no statistically significant thing to find there as far as improving or not having people get COVID-19 or spreading. Most studies also show that kids cannot spread it to parents or do not, because they're so good at either not getting severely sick from the virus or eliminating it completely and becoming immune. Lastly, I want to point out that in the most available data in 2019, my kids both drive to school, and there were 2,400 teenagers, ages 13 to 19, that died in that year. That's 7 kids per day dying from car accidents. In the last 18 months, 430 children have died from COVID-19. That's less than approximately 1 per day. So we're taking more of a risk going to school, driving to school, than we are masking or not masking with COVID, when it's statistically insignificant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Nathan Miller.
First of all, I want to congratulate my wife surviving me 21 years. That's our anniversary today. But this is really important that I'm here. It's also very important, Isabella, congratulations, and the oath that you took. I'm going to encourage you to always fight for what is right.
Please address the board and not just one individual.
Anyway, good job,
Thank
kid.
you.
Okay, so speaking of the board, I had this all drawn out on August 12th, and obviously there was a bunch of spots, taken from us. We have a FOIA request that proved, and screenshots that proved those spots were taken from us. It's an embarrassment that I'm here talking to you about this. As far as masks go, my 13-year-old daughter, I know her better than any of you, any doctor. I know her immune system. And to add to, I think it was Jason, it's 0.00003% infection fatality rate. All right? No offense to Josh, love your beard. There's no efficacy of his beard. They don't work. And if they work, why are we still here talking about this? We're here a year later talking about the same thing. If you want to mask your child, mask your child. Do what's right for your child. We understand that. I think I know what's best for my child. I don't want the school to tell me that. And it's an embarrassment that I hear replies from this board and other administration members saying, well, there's other options for education. You lost $200,000 the first day you announced this plan. And this plan has been set from, this was always the plan. You didn't just snap your finger and say, oh, now the infection rate, how come other schools aren't doing it? I want to congratulate the Board of Education at Kearney, who suspended their mask mandate until they have more feedback. They're opening the gymnasium, and it's your legal right to only allow us 30 minutes. I get that. They're opening the gymnasium to hear more feedback. Do a true poll and ask parents what they want for their children. That's what we're asking. The Department of Education says that the Board of Education has the ultimate decision in mask mandates. Who's the COVID team? Who's the COVID team? Why did you relinquish power to the COVID team? And if you're talking about the people that these doctors that are consulting in your COVID team, pardon my French, but doctors who consult for you are calling our governor a douchebag because he doesn't believe the same person as this person. The COVID team's not vetted, they're biased. And I don't know who is in charge, if it's your majesty or what, but we've got teachers that are working right now in our school system with COVID because they don't get pandemic relief. Where's the $18 million of ESSER 3 money going? They have to use their sick days. They don't get paid pandemic relief because they're not vaccinated. If you're vaccinated, you can have your paid pandemic relief. Let's create some more division. That's what this country needs. I'm sorry, I am not good at being Tommy Toughnuts. Everybody that knows me, I'm loving. I want prosperity and peace for everybody, but this is an embarrassment.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ava Dawson.
My name is Ava Dawson. I'm a medical professional and an occupational therapist. I specialize in working with children with disabilities and sensory integration disorder dysfunction. I've spent 20 years of my life advocating for children and educating teachers. I have worked in multiple hospital settings, and I've traveled throughout the state of Nebraska educating teachers on sensory integration disorders and how to implement strategies to improve learning in the classroom. I would be considered an expert in my field. I'm an expert in the nervous system, and I'm an expert in child development. I have presented you with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It is widely understood that human beings are unable to grow, learn when their physiological needs are not being met. This is widely taught to all educators. We all know children who are under significant trauma for long periods of time have significant difficulties with learning and integrating in the classroom. I want you to note at the very bottom of this pyramid is the basic physiological needs. As you can see, one of the basic physiological needs is breathing. We all know from research, the Harvard study, other scientific documents that based on math efficacy, that masks restrict breathing. A person is not able to feel safe, develop appropriate feelings of belonging, develop appropriate self-esteem or self-actualization without basic human functions. I would also like you to take a look at the pyramid of learning. This pyramid demonstrates the importance of having a good foundation in order to develop appropriate skills for acquisition of learning. The basis of the system is the central nervous system. It has been demonstrated that being in a mask for long periods of time causes significant stress on the central nervous system, including headaches, nausea, difficulty concentrating, and severe anxiety. Without a calm and integrated nervous system, a child is unable to develop appropriate skills for overall academic learning. We have not begun to see the long-term effects of masking our children. It appears to me that your decision to start the school year with a mask mandate is not science-based or based off cases in the area. How are you basing this decision? You are not making this decision in the best interest of our children. You are making this decision because you are incentivized with a large sum of money. I would like the school board to please make it known to the audience how much money you received to start the Safe Return Plan. Part of the criterion to receive this money was universal and correct mask wearing. Placing a mask on a child should be a parent's choice. Masking a child for a long-term basis stresses the nervous system and without due cause, in my professional opinion, is child abuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker and the last one in this category from the August 12th meeting is Catherine Maudlin.
Do I just start?
Yeah, and you can keep it up. We can hear you.
At what point do you feel it is okay to make masks mandatory and take away the parent's choice from almost 10,000 students of their children's health? Dr. Fauci himself said masks do not work. There's current COVID cases in the school district as well, which is a prime example that masks do not work. The fact of the matter is that there's no scientific evidence that masks work. The particles from COVID are so small that masks do not stop it. Our children are breathing in bacteria all day. Masks collect and colonize viruses, bacteria, microbes, and mold. You cannot mandate masks. We will not allow you to harm our children anymore. Children are not at more harm with COVID than they are with the seasonal flu or RSV. But how come we've never masked them? Our children are falling behind in school and being harmed physically and psychologically from these masks. Reason long-term wearing masks are harmful. Chemical cocktail found in face masks are toxic for children. Wearing masks is lowering arterial oxygen, which suppresses the immune system. Medical masks lower children's oxygen levels in the blood and raise carbon dioxide levels in the blood. The tactics you are trying to use to keep our children from getting their education and having a normal life needs to end. We need to start to take away the school funding if you continue to try to mandate and dictate. As an American, it is our right to choose our personal health choice, not you. How do you sleep at night knowing you're harming children psychologically and physically? This is a pandemic, nothing else. It is time to protect our constitutional rights. Ages 0 to 19 years old have a survival rate of 99.99815%. The facts show that negligible and questionable benefit in such a low-risk group does not justify mandatory masking. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now move on to agenda item 7, which is request to address the Board of Education. And this is speakers that came forward tonight. The guidelines are still the same. I'm not going to read those again. And then again, the lights will work the same way. So our first speaker is Henry Dawson. Is that correct?
Hi, I'm Henry Dawson, and I would like to say to you that masking children is terrible. I hate this. This is one of the worst things ever. It's torturing these children. And you want to know the reason why I went to a different school? Because of this. This is the reason. I went to Grand Island Public Schools for 4 years, until 4th grade, and I loved it until this COVID stuff came around, and then we've been homeschooled, and then we didn't want to come back because of the masks. We did not want to, so we went to this free school that we could have the option of wearing a mask or not. You guys are torturing these children. It's distracting for them. They don't like it. And 7 hours a day with this on is not good. It is awful for these children. It's hard for them to focus and learn. Instead, they have anxiety, and most of them probably want to have the option of wearing a mask or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Scheel. Is that right?
Hello. Thanks for letting me address you guys. Yep, we're here about masks. I know there's other agenda topics to discuss, but this is what we're talking about today. So in the Grand Island Independent on August 9th, Dr. Grover, I believe you were quoted in the Grand Island Independent as saying that safety remains the district's priority. Now, I'm not arguing that you guys don't want our kids to be safe. I'm not arguing that at all. What I'm arguing is the mask mandate. Even when I came in through the door here, if I had an exception, it wasn't accepted. So I know I've emailed all you guys about the adverse effects. No one ever sent anything back. But seriously, there are negative effects to these masks, and you guys know it. Masks interfere with temperature regulation. Anything covering the head and face are significant for well-being due to their large representation in the sensitive cerebral cortex. It's stuff that we can't just talk away. You guys are accountable for your decisions. You're required to conduct a fair, transparent risk assessment and ongoing cost-benefit analysis of your actions and policies. You should be taking into account the social, physical, mental harm you might be causing. We should have the option. I'm not saying if people want to wear a mask or they feel like it's best for them, that's fine. But don't mandate it for everyone. There's long-term consequences that we're going to find on these kids just from wearing these masks. Just like with smoking 100 years ago, if the media continues and if we all continue to deny the existence of harms caused by masks, it'll be impossible for people to continue to justify their use. These things are bad. And if the CDC is what you're citing is for the reasons to wear masks, how the CDC also says you're supposed to remove your mask if it gets moist from sweat and replace it with a clean mask? Why does my grandson say that sometimes he gets so sweaty with the mask that the sweat drips on his paper? No one's ever said anything to him. The CDC doesn't recommend masks that you can let light pass through. Have we instructed our parents to not use those masks? Both my grandkids have masks that light can pass through. After touching your mask, you're supposed to wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds or use hand sanitizer. I have seen all of you, Mr. Hawley, and I don't mean any disrespect. Mr. Hawley, you have done it more times than I can count. Mr. Brose, Mr. Helinski, Miss Simmons, and I'm sorry if I'm not using the right Miss or Mrs. Albers, Lindsay Jergens. I've seen you all touch your mask, but saw no one use
Thank you.
hand sanitizer.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tara Eastman.
My name is Tara Eastman, and I'm a mother of 4 boys, all in the GIPS district. My speech is going to be a little bit more personal versus factual this time. Since the last school board meeting, one thing I have learned is that sometimes all you need is one person to stand up. Since that last school board meeting, my phone every day has blown up from other parents showing their gratitude for being their voice. Hundreds of texts, emails, Facebook messages, and phone calls saying thank you and keep fighting for our children. Even messages from teachers among the GIPS staff, but they are too afraid to speak up. All of them had the same voice, that same voice of concern that I did on that day. The point being, when did the School Board of Education suddenly know what was best for each and every single student individually? When did our voice about my child when did our voice about my child, or your voice about my child, top mine as their parent? My youngest child has a form of a sensory disorder called ODD. With that, and in the last year, or in the last few months, he's already showed signs of speech regression. He's having outbursts before school. I'm getting phone calls now, which I wasn't when we had our private meeting. And it's getting tougher and tougher every day, and it's all for the simple fact of having something over his face, because it is a sensory disorder and it is affecting him emotionally and on a mental state. My oldest, who is in 7th grade, is now having issues such as headaches, and he's having to take breaks in school just so he can take his mask off. In your mission statement, you said you wanted every student to succeed, but how are you helping my children? When we spoke in a private meeting, you were willing to consider ways to work with parents and their children so they could be the best students they could possibly be, yet the email that I got back kind of said otherwise. I know what is best for my child, and in-person school is what is best, but not with a mask. So I'm again asking, since when did what works for you become what works for me and my child? To me, this isn't about what you necessarily think is best. To me, this is about courage and cowards. Courage is an inner resolution to go forward despite obstacles. Cowardice is submissive surrender to circumstances. Courage breeds creativity. Cowardice represses fear and is mastered by it. Northwest District and Kearney Public Schools are showing courage. Are you?
Thank you. Our last speaker is Carolyn Epp.
Hi, I'm Caroline Epp from 804 West 8th Road, Gilton, Nebraska. And I just want to let you know that I am against mask wearing. I know that they are not effective, that I just looked at something about Sweden just yesterday and how they have done nothing, but the COVID rates are like just down to nothing. So I think you all ought to take time to check that out. But one thing for certain, I do not sympathize with the medical field nor with their advisors, since they refuse use of medication known to work, such as ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. So I feel like, how can we trust their advice when they refuse to use medication that is known, is proven to be effective? If you check out the frontline doctors, they have treated thousands of patients, some of them specifically thousands, and they have not lost a single person to COVID-19. So I think we need to open our eyes and check alternative sources, not your mainstream medical field. They are not being honest with us. And I have personal experience with medical doctors that they could not treat me, and I had to go out of the country even to be treated. So I just know that we cannot just take our doctors at their word because, for one thing, they're not being honest about what really works. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone who took the time to come to speak to us tonight. We appreciate your comments. If necessary, Dr. Grover and her staff will look into some of the comments and respond to individuals if needed. And at this time, we will take a short recess. Thank you. Oh, I need a motion for that.
I make a motion to take a short recess.
Second, Mr. Barsonis, please vote. Motion passes. So do we need a motion to? Yeah, yeah.
I make a motion to reconvene.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Helinski, please vote. All right. Thank you, motion passes. We will move forward then to our information items, sorry. 9.1 is the 2021-2022 Safe Return to School Resolution. Dr. Dexter.
Thank you. And we passed a resolution last year and in the spring before that to just give designated authority to the superintendent or superintendent's designee. And we really felt like we needed to continue for this school year. So it is a resolution, and it's number 20210909_2. The Board of Education of Hall County School District number 40-0002, also known as Grand Island Public School District, regarding the safe return to school for 2021-2022. And typically we read the resolution in the motion, but it's about 5 pages long. So I talked with Dr. Schroeder, and I'm going to read through the most of it as information, and then again as action, questions, that kind of thing. And then the motion can just be as presented by Dr. Dexter. So we'll get started. Be it resolved that district administrators and staff members have worked diligently with key stakeholder groups, including public health officials and medical experts, to develop a safe return to school plan for in-person student instruction during the 2021-2022 school year. The Board of Education supports the ongoing efforts to develop and implement a safe return to school plan, and the Board of Education believes that it is in the best interest of student learning that students return to in-person instruction during the 2021-2022 school year. The board hereby desires to delegate certain authority and decision-making responsibility to the superintendent or superintendent's designee, so that the superintendent or superintendent's designee may continue to plan for and ultimately implement without delay a safe return to school in-person instruction during the 2021-2022 school year. Therefore, the Board of Education hereby finds, determines, and adopts the following. The Board of Education hereby ratifies, supports, and affirms all action taken to date by district administrators and staff in response to and planning for student instruction during the COVID-19 pandemic. Pursuant to Nebraska Revised Statute 79526, the Board of Education shall make rules and regulations as it deems necessary for the government and health of the pupils, and devise any means as may seem best to secure the regular attendance and progress of children at school. In fulfillment of that statutory requirement and pursuant to all other applicable law, the Board of Education hereby expressly delegates to the superintendent or superintendent's designee the authority to develop rules and regulations deemed necessary for the government and health of the district students, and devise any means as may seem best to secure the regular attendance and progress of students at school. These rules and regulations may include a mask requirement or recommendation, sanitizing procedures, social distancing guidelines, building entry and admission protocols, and the like. In formulating, preparing, and implementing said rules and regulations, the superintendent shall consult with appropriate stakeholder groups, including public health officials and medical experts. The board further expressly delegates and authorizes the superintendent or superintendent's designee to develop and implement any and all other health and safety measures in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including modifications or changes to the district school calendar, transportation provisions and opportunities, extracurricular and after-school activities, before and after-school care programs, and so forth. The board hereby expresses its expectation that all persons, including students, staff, community members, and other visitors, comply with such rules and regulations. The Board of Education hereby delegates superintendent or superintendent's designee the authority to amend, update, or otherwise revise student handbooks for the 2021-2022 school year. The Board of Education delegates the superintendent or superintendent's designee the authority to amend, update, or otherwise revise staff handbooks, so long as such amendments, updates, or revisions relate to COVID-19 pandemic. The authority to determine and implement staff return to work requirements, staff health and safety precautions, and to the extent permitted by law, staff compensation arrangements, including the payment or non-payment of extra duty stipends if a season or activity is canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The board expects all staff to comply with such amendments, updates, and revisions. The board hereby acknowledges that it has balanced its desire for in-person student instruction with the fluid COVID-19 situation and the need for the district to achieve a proper balance with the limitations of the district's current budget, existing facilities, staffing levels, and limited resources. The board hereby suspends any board policies that conflict with the resolution or conflict with any action taken by the superintendent or superintendent's designee pursuant to this resolution. Any board policies that would otherwise prevent, hinder, or delay necessary action in carrying out or implementing the same in order to cope with the COVID-19 emergency are hereby waived or suspended. Once a resolution expires, all board policies, even those that conflict with this resolution, will become and remain effective. The superintendent or superintendent's designee is expected to keep the board reasonably informed of any meaningful actions taken pursuant to this resolution. The board acknowledges that a return to in-person instruction plan may mitigate, but will not completely eliminate the associated risk of in-person instruction in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. The board balances this risk while simultaneously recognizing that the need for quality, effective, in-person student instruction is a priority during the 2021-2022 school year. The superintendent or superintendent's designee is hereby delegated and authorized to take any subsequent or emergency measures or actions in planning for or implementing a return to in-person student instruction in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including those measures that may not be explicitly referenced in this resolution. The board intends to ratify the actions of the superintendent or superintendent's designee at a subsequent board meeting. This resolution and all of the content, powers, delegation, and authority therein shall expire upon the earlier of a vote by a majority of the quorum of the board or the end of the 2021-2022 school year. And this would take a majority vote of a quorum of the Board of Education at a public meeting.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? Dr. Bros.
This is possibly for you, Dr. Dexter, or you, Dr. Grover. Our board has a crisis team. I'm curious to know what role the crisis team will play. The crisis team of the Board of Education will play in the administration of this resolution.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Burrows. Anytime we are making any large-scale decisions, whether it is to, whatever questions that come up that is different than what's currently in play, we normally assemble our board crisis team, because usually they're real-time situations, right? It could be a week or two before the next board meeting. It allows us the opportunity to run concepts, ideas, concerns across the board crisis team and to give us feedback before we actually take any action. And although this does provide provisions for us to make emergency purchases or decisions, we still honor very much the protocols that we have in play. Regardless, we still take items to our committee structures to run them by the board. For finance and facilities, we still bring those items through the committees for approval. And even if we do have to make a decision, we will still follow protocol in bringing them to the board for information and action. Right now, we don't know where we're headed. And we didn't bring it forward in July just simply because we had hoped that we would be in a different situation. But as things stand right now, we really don't know what lies ahead. But we do appreciate your trust within the administration, the pandemic team, and knowing that we have protocols in place to keep the board informed, and we would never act without consideration and consultation with the Board of Education by the appropriate means as allowed by the law.
I didn't mean to catch you off guard there, but one thing that you did say that I wanted to reiterate is that we have board committees in place that will also help with the administration of this resolution. This is not carte blanche. This is something that Dr. Grover works with us as in committee and as a crisis team. Thank you, Dr. Grover.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, our next information item is 9.2, the Voluntary Early Retirement Incentive Program, or VRIP. Dr. Schroeder.
Howdy, folks.
Hello.
I'm here tonight to propose offering a VRIP, a Voluntary Early Retirement Incentive Program, for this year for the purpose of reducing staff cost in future years. The Facility and Finance Committee had audience with the school district's attorney to preview the attached VRIP documents and ask questions at the Facilities and Finance meeting on August 31st. Ms. Kristen Iree, Chief of Human Capital, has been involved with me in developing the draft documents attached to this agenda item. The VRIP limits the number of total staff who can participate in the program to 15 teachers. It also limits the number of teachers in high needs areas such as speech language pathologists, math, and science. The proposed cost of the VRIP, if all 15 staff members or eligible slots were filled, would be $525,000. That would be paid from the Employee Benefit Fund, which has a current balance far in excess of that. So if you should choose to offer this, it would be fully funded. Estimated cost savings based on all 15 slots being filled for the program is $375,000 a year beginning in year 22, 23, and going forward. The maximum payout to each participating teacher is capped at $35,000. These draft documents are being offered for consideration by the Board of Education this month with the hope of being approved as an action item at the October board meeting. And I'm not trying to be pushy, I'm trying to expedite things because there are certain safeguards in a VRIP where those that initially choose to participate have multiple opportunities to rescind their decision. And so that's why it's on as an information and an action next month. If you have any questions as you review this proposal and the attached draft documents, I'm your point of contact. Do you have any questions that I can answer for you right now?
Dr. Brose.
Dr. Schroeder, do you know when was the last, first of all, two questions. Do we offer this every year? And secondly, if not, when was the last time the school district offered this program?
We do not offer this every year. We're not required to. The board's at liberty to decide to use it whenever they think it's appropriate. And I believe the last time that it was offered, ooh, you're putting me to the test here. I don't know the exact number of years.
It was the 2010-2011 school year.
Okay.
That's for the record. I just want,
Yeah.
you know, this is, again, not something we offer. I'm on facilities and finance. This isn't something we offer every year. When we offer it, we do it because there possibly is a need for that, and it's probably time after a decade.
Yeah, I thank you for that.
Mr. Helinski.
Just to get the number straight in my head, maybe I misheard you. You said it was going to cost us $525,000, but only save us $375,000. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that initial cost of the buyout, $35,000 at $15,000, that's the payout amount. If all of them have the max number of service credit years and they get that $35,000 payout, it will be $525,000 paid out of the Employee Benefit Fund. But then immediately after those staff are no longer on the payroll, the savings will be $375,000 a year based on an estimate of $25,000 cost saving per staff member replaced.
And we only do this every couple of years, so it's not repetitive is what I'm asking. Because if we're paying out $525,000 but only $375,000, that's bad math.
No, per year. So every year.
Per
we
year.
save
Okay. Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's instant cost savings the following year. But you're correct. There is an initial investment. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
9.3 is the construction update. Mr. Petch.
Thanks, Mrs. Hinkle. Pretty easy this time. We did complete the ELC, and we're moved in, and it's operating very well. Would remind that we do have an open house Sunday of September on the 26th at 2 o'clock. So please, if you can, come and see the facility. It turned out well. Did get the playground done, so we're a 100% club, and so really glad to have that one behind us. Continuing to work with the medical pathway design, which I've said we're finishing the design here this fall. We are going to postpone to commence construction and bid process until we have our fundraising in place, which will probably push us into potentially next summer. So that's what I know today. Those things can change. I mean, if we land a big donor, that we could then start right away. But right now, if we don't have the money, we can't go ahead and move it forward just yet. So with that, I'm going to conclude my report, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Nope. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So 9.4 is the student representative report. Isabella, are you ready for your first report? Go ahead.
Beginning of the 2021 school year. Just like any other school year, the students have begun to flood the halls. For some, this is their first year back completely in person. Speaking to students throughout the first week, the first days were smooth sailing and started off to a great start according to my peers. Students are excited about a more connected environment in contrast to last fall. Speaking to some other students that came back from virtual online school, they have expressed a feeling of being overwhelmed yet eager to go back to the swing of things. Academics. Classes have begun and students are offered AP courses. Some classes are equipped with Wayne State credit, while other classes are still accessible for CCC credits. There is currently 544 students enrolled in AP dual credit classes. Each pathway pertains to a few required classes to take, enabling them to further themselves career readiness. Students are excited to have more of a say in what classes they are able to take according to their pathway. Students also have shown a favor in the way the schedule is laid out, as they receive office hours to meet with teachers concerning their classes. There's many activities undergoing in Grand Island Senior High. Theater is underway in preparation for Mary Poppins. The musical is later in October. Band is preparing for Harvest of Harmony. The show choir is working forward to the winter season. Miss Noosa's classes report that 6 seniors traveled to Myrtle Day the 8th at Hastings College and competed with 38 other schools. Our Gips team finished third out of 38 schools. Athletics. The football team is 1-1, winning to Kearney, but defeating Lincoln Pius last Friday. The spirit at Gips is building up for the first home game this Friday against Lincoln Southeast. A pep rally has been planned to honor the fall sports and build up the spirit for the game. Volleyball has seen much improvement. They have played against the top 10 in close rank. The team went on to beat Columbus in the Triangular. The volleyball team later went on to win their second game of the season against Hastings at a home game. They will play in the Kearney Invite this weekend. Softball's JV team won against Miller North in the tournament this past weekend. Earlier this week, the softball team won 9-7. Boys tennis has seen an increase in participation. The Lincoln Invite for cross country featured Grand Island's own senior winning the invite, as well as 2 Islander boys placing 4th and 7th. 3 girls earned medals for their placement in 4th, 7th, and 9th. Girls golf features 2 top medalists. More programs are building up, such as Poetry Club, and more are to start. This concludes my report, and I'm open to any questions.
Appreciate that. Oops, sorry. Any questions? I didn't have that way on. So tell us a little bit more about your marine biology.
So I love orcas, and I hate SeaWorld. So Last year we had to write a 20-page research paper for my English class, so I, stayed up all night, learned, watched all the documentaries, listened to my favorite marine biologist, which is Ingrid Visser. She started an amazing program to move the orcas out and to see like pens in the ocean, so that really inspired me. But living in Grand Island, obviously, is not the place for that. And I am in the business, agribusiness pathway, but first years were actually really interesting to me, and I decided that I love the science and the science and animals and the plants and the world, so that really sparked my interest.
Okay, well, I hope you're able to find a path to an ocean somewhere. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate it. All right, 9.5 is the superintendent report, Dr. Grover.
Thank you, Madam President. So just maybe we'd like to start out tonight with a COVID-19 update. The pandemic team continues to meet. Mr. Gerhardt, are you there? I'm going to have Mr. Gerhardt come out to represent the pandemic team. As mentioned earlier, we do want to continue to update the board on the numbers that we're watching, how we're paying attention to staff and students, as well as the research and what kind of goes into our thinking, just the conversations on a daily basis, the challenges, and just trying to get to the best decision with the end goal of keeping our students safe and in school. I can't stress that enough. Our goal is to, we received a lot of support last year that we were able to finish the entire school year on site. It is definitely more challenging, and we want to make sure that people understand that this is not the pandemic that we were dealing with last year. It's very easy for us to think that we've done this before, but the truth is we haven't. We were not faced with the Delta variant last year and some of the differences of laws, supports, et cetera, that impact the challenges that we're up against. And so, Mr. Gerhardt, I'll turn it over to you at this time.
All right, thank you very much. The first thing we do when we want to look at how we're handling our response to the pandemic is look for data. And so we go to the CDC's website, and unfortunately, if you recall back in May, the governor in the state of Nebraska worked with Department of Health and Human Services to stop the county by county level data aggregation for the state of Nebraska. And so this is a little bit tongue in cheek because we look at that and we see county level data for the rest of the country, but unfortunately we don't have that. So when you think about how we're processing data and the things that we're going to go through here in just a minute, understand that we're using the sources that we have available to us, and sometimes those aren't necessarily ideal, and we're doing the best that we can with that information. So this is what we do have. This is the Central District Health Department's dashboard. This is updated 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This data only includes case information for all 3 counties. So it's Hall, Hamilton, and Merrick. It's no longer disaggregated by county. As I said, that's the same reason why we don't see the information on the slide before us. So we're using this as a metric, but we're also working very closely with the health department. Unfortunately, they're providing us with that information. Being a county, again, over the size of 20,000 population, they are able to release that information to us. A couple things to note here. Case count at 213, which if you follow the CDC's community transmission thresholds, that translates to 271 cases per 100,000 over 7 days. If you remember back to the return to school plan, the substantial transmission threshold is 50. And so we're nearing 6 times that still as we work through this. The positivity rate is concerning as well. We're getting more and more reports as we work in the pandemic team of our nursing staff when they contact parents or they contact staff and they ask them, you're symptomatic, please go get a test, let us know the results. Unfortunately, the testing isn't available, and so we're running into some problems there with getting access to tests and then timeliness of the test results. So that 34% positivity rate, we really want to see that about 5. Which means out of every 100 tests that we give, 5 come back positive. Right now, every 100 tests we give, 35 of them are positive. So the next slide, this is actually data that we used quite a bit last year when it was aggregated by the county. And I've got 3 lines on this. There's the green line, which is Louisiana. I wanted to give you something to compare to. So as we watch the news and we see things around the country, Florida, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, those are all kind of in a bad way with hospitalizations, case rates, and things like that. I wanted to show you a comparison to where Nebraska is, as well as where Hall County is. Now, keep in mind, that's actually the Central District Health Department, so it's Hall, Hamilton, and Merrick, but we know that when we look at this, so we just keep that in the back pocket. But you'll see where Nebraska is, you'll see where Hall County, Nebraska is the blue line, Hall County is the orange, and we're following that trajectory up. The green line is Louisiana. What I want to show you on the next slide here is the vaccination rates for the state of Nebraska. Nebraska as a whole actually exceeds where Louisiana, their vaccination rate. However, Hall County is lower than that. So I'm going to go back one slide and we'll see. We're not quite sure, and Dr. Rauner and Dr. Lawler did their weekly updates, and we watched that. We gained the insight that they provide through that. We're not sure if the drop there is an actual peak and a change in direction. We're hoping that it is, based on the masking that we implemented and the other non-pharmaceutical layered prevention strategies that we put in place at the beginning of the school year, in addition to some of the other larger communities doing similar things. So we're not 100% sure, and unfortunately, as history comes back to us, last year when we saw those long weekends, we also saw this kind of dip. So it's just timeliness of the data, when's it getting in, what's the access to tests, we had a long weekend, et cetera. Unfortunately, we'll have to keep watching it for a week or so to figure out whether or not that's a real change in direction or not. This is the Hall County data that's provided directly from the health department. So when they do their updates, they also reach out to one of the members of the pandemic team and give the data periodically, so we're able to track the Hall County rates. And you'll see that far right, we're actually at 293 cases per 100,000 in Hall County. So the actual Hamilton and Merrick are pulling us down a little bit, which is a good thing from the Tri-County perspective, but it doesn't really show what's truly happening in our community. And then, of course, down near the bottom there, the orange dash line is the substantial transmission. So that's the target we want to get back to. So what does that mean for us? The case rates and the hospitalizations are going up. We get asked all the time, are the hospitalizations, are they students, are they children that are getting hospitalized? Unfortunately, the answer is there's not a lot right now. But the access to care is suffering, as demonstrated here. This is information that Dr. Rauner actually shared on his weekly update, that he had a colleague that he went to medical school with that tried 23 different hospitals before finding an ICU. And it's not that COVID is necessarily filling all of those beds. And I can't recall if we have, oh, there it is. So this is actual CDHD data for hospitalizations of COVID patients. And you'll see there, we're hovering right around that 18 to 20 range of actual patients here in the Tri-County that are in our hospitals. But that's also, when you look at the percentage of beds occupied by COVID patients, that's still about 20%. We still have a lot of patients in our hospitals that have other reasons for being there. Hospitals aren't designed to work at 10% or 15% capacity. They're designed to work full. And so when you're full and then you add in the additional cases, that's when you get into trouble. People are still going to have heart attacks, they're still going to have strokes, they're still going to have car accidents, they still have to have a place to go. And so that's what's stressing the healthcare system out. And then you combine that, you look at our struggles with our staffing right now, and the healthcare industry is in the same boat. They're struggling to find people to fill those shifts as well. So we've actually watched, and this is out on the CDHD's website, anyone has access to this information. You can watch the percentage of available beds fluctuate anywhere from 123 staffed beds down to 80 staffed beds, depending on the day. And that's all, again, related to staffing and capacity. So here's some internal data that we track, and this is shared in a slightly different way on our COVID dashboard on the website. But this shows the number of students and staff that are out due to COVID-like illnesses, or we could call those Q codes on the students, because we're tracking it. If you fall into a certain category, we're going to designate your attendance code based on whether or not we believe that it's COVID-related or it's not COVID-related. If you're home because you just have a headache and no other symptoms, maybe that's one thing, but if you have multiple symptoms and they fall on the symptom chart, the nursing staff works with it, tells the secretaries, and they code it. We're doing a lot better this year at the way in which we code these and the way in which we work to keep kids in school rather than sending them out depending on what their symptoms are. So we're trying really hard. Obviously, that's the goal. We want to keep kids in the classroom. The staff, we're actually doing some further analysis on this. Right now, we're just looking at staff who fall in the 3 different categories there, staff illness, family illness, and pandemic leave. Remember, we changed the pandemic leave, and one of the speakers tonight actually discussed that how you qualify for the pandemic support did change going into this school year based on vaccination status and a number of other factors. As Dr. Grover alluded a little bit earlier, we're in a different game. COVID, the Delta variant of COVID is not the same as the Wuhan or the wild strain, the original COVID, for a number of reasons. We'll talk about them here, but it really is, as we look at data that was collected from March of last year through about January or February of this year, we have to understand that was with a different strain of the virus, and its properties and transmissibility and everything were different. So why is the Delta different? It's more contagious. The R0 is about 6 for Delta, and the R0 of the original Wuhan was about 2, meaning for every person that gets it, I'm going to give it to 2 people. Well, with Delta, it's 6. And so obviously more transmissible. Children are more likely to get Delta. There's some statistics there about the last week. We're seeing children aged 0 to 20 substantially increase the velocity at which they're catching the disease. They're now representing 26.8% of the weekly reported cases. And if you look at the CDC's national data, children aged 12 to 17 are the fastest growing by age group. And Delta doesn't just affect children with underlying health conditions. This is actually in general for COVID. I think that's a myth that I hear a lot, that it doesn't, it's only the sick that are getting sick and going to the hospital. 46% of hospitalizations from March of last year through June of this year, children going into the hospital had no underlying health conditions. So obviously, as we think about the health and safety of all our students and staff, that's something that's on the radar. And then Delta is worse than influenza. And this was brought up a little earlier tonight as well. And I promise I didn't sit back there editing this while we were listening to everyone speak, because I didn't. But the hospitalizations for children are almost 2.5 times more for Delta right now than for influenza. And that's not done. Obviously, we're still in the middle of this. This is still new. We're watching those numbers continue to climb. So why is Delta different for GIPS? I did have to update this slide multiple times today. We had 22 confirmed cases in the last 7 days. Right now, 21 of those are students. 1 of those is staff member. We're still waiting for test results in a number of cases, so this is just the confirmed positive. And it isn't, so you know, if we have a confirmed positive in a family, but 3 other family members have symptoms and they don't get tested, or they go test and get a negative, or the physician just assumes they're positive, they call them presumptive positives, those don't get on this list. So we're being very stringent. It is a confirmed positive test case. But Delta's more contagious. Last year, we had 1 known transmission within our schools thanks to our non-pharmaceutical interventions. So when you talk about layering prevention strategies, I'll use Mr. Harden's favorite phrase, the needlepoint bipolar ionization. Our masking, our hand washing, our social distancing, our cohorting, and there's a whole list we'll get into in just a second here. All of those things led us to a point where I guarantee there was more than this, but there was only one that we could trace down and say definitively happened in the schools. In case rates, when we look at last year, 2021 total staff and students have confirmed positive. Of the ones we tracked, And there was some, we didn't start tracking on day one last year. We eased into it because everything was going on all at the same time. But this is even adjusted for the times in which we started tracking last year. We were averaging about 3.7 positives per school day. And so far this year, in just the days that we've been open, we're at 5.9, almost 6 cases per day. So that's concrete evidence of the difference in the Delta virus versus the original strain compared to last year. So we have an adage in a number of different fields, but in security and information systems, we say in securing information systems and infrastructure, the blue team, the good guys, have to be right 100% of the time. Well, the red team, the bad guys, they only have to be right once. And so we don't just we put antivirus on it and you're good. We're safe. We're not going to deal with the rest of the security. We have passwords on the APs. We have locks on the doors. We have all the things that create those layers. And so when the pandemic team looks at what does it take to bring us back, to keep us in person, this is kind of that list. And this is part of that Safe Return to School plan. And this is directly from the CDC's guidance and our state and local health officials. So you can read that. I'm sure you've seen it before. So are the layered prevention strategies working? This is the real question. Do they work? Is the combination of everything making things better? And the answer is yes. GIPS has the lowest rate of quarantining students than any other school district in the Central District Health Department. So they're tracking the number of kids that they're contact tracing, quarantining, and things like that, and on a percentage basis, we're the largest district, and we're also the one that's quarantining students at the least amount. So I'd say that's a success. So what can we do to keep kids in schools? Number one, vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. Location, location, location. We need to encourage that. We have a very low vaccination rate in Hall County for whatever the reasons are, but that is one of the biggest strategies to help us get back to the way of life that we all want to be at. Consistent and correct mask wearing. Number two, it's not 100%. In fact, in some cases, it's not even 50%. But when you call 23 hospitals to get a bed, it's about slowing it down. And all of these prevention strategies have to be applied in concert. So avoiding indoor spaces with crowds of people, not wearing masks, that's big. The thing that we saw by this year having, already in 3 weeks, having 3 different incidents where we've seen transmission to multiple people, we have to, it's, even with masking, it's more virulent, it's more spreadable. And so taking those off just gets you closer to that R0 of 6, right? And instead of down near the 2, and ultimately it needs to be under 1 if we want to control things. And then hand washing still matters. This is, they're seeing, the health care industry is seeing such an uptick in things that aren't COVID because we've been so diligent for so long about hand washing and about mask wearing and all of those things. We're seeing, upticks in RSV. We actually saw influenza in the summer. Other diseases, hand, foot, and mouth disease, rotavirus, that kind of stuff, those are all becoming more prevalent. And I think part of that is we kind of went, COVID doesn't spread on surfaces, so we're good. But we obviously still need to be diligent with our staff and students for everyone's health. So this is a big question. When can the masking be reduced? And this was brought up by 2 of the UNMC doctors today in one of those updates. And it was, here's kind of a guideline. And you'll see that we're pretty close on what we're doing. Hospitals have to have the capacity. That's been a guiding principle for the state for the last 9 months, 10 months. And it's true, we need to continue to do that. We need to continue to have capacity available for those people that are going to get sick, regardless of what's going on with the rest of the masking and vaccinating and all that. We also need to reduce community spread. So they're recommending low transmission as defined by the CDC and a low test positivity rate. If If you remember the previous slides, we have a test positivity rate of near 35%. That's a problem. We need more access to testing, and we need more consistent turnaround times for those tests. And then we defined it in the Safe Return to School plan as actually moderate transmission. So low transmission is 10 cases per 100,000 the previous 7 days. It's basically a case a day, just slightly over. We said anything under 50 in our plan was kind of the threshold where we start evaluating masking and off-masking. And so I don't know that there's any changes to that. I just wanted to bring it up. This is what the recommendations of our local epidemiology public health officials is. And then 85% of the building population being vaccinated. We're a far cry from that, but that was the recommendation. And those are the things, I mean, that's what's been consistently discussed and delivered by all levels of public health for the last 9 months since the vaccine was available. So, any questions?
Ms. Wolf.
I have a question in regards to the access of testing. I believe it was this week that testing is no longer free. There are some limited locations, but is that part of the problem also in regard to access?
I can't speak specifically to the discontinuance of free testing. I believe there is still a number of locations where free testing can happen. And I think one of the things was it was symptomatic. If you were asymptomatic, if you didn't have symptoms, then the tests weren't necessarily being paid for or free. But if you are symptomatic, then they were. And so I'll have to get some clarification on that.
I know Hy-Vee and Walgreens are still offering it, but I believe the other sites are billing your insurance if you have insurance. So.
Okay.
Mrs. Albers.
I just want to thank you, Corey. You do such a good job with these presentations, and you take this information, this data, and you disseminate it in a way that is easy to understand and makes sense to all of us, and just well done, and thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't have a chance to listen to Dr. Lawler or Dr. Rauner this week, so did they talk at all about the new variant that is coming, the MU?
They touched on it very slightly. I don't think there's enough data yet to know exactly what to expect from that.
Okay.
I think the unfortunate reality is that we don't know, and we all want to plan. We want this to be our last wave,
yes.
Right?
Yes, oh man.
And so it's just, with these things, as we continue to have low vaccination rates, we continue to have opportunity for those new variants to come about. Most of the time, new variants don't necessarily become problematic, but when they do, like Delta, then you have a problem. And so I just hope that I hope with all of them that this is our last wave. And
I would agree. I think we all celebrated a little early. I think we really felt in June and July that we had gotten through it. And so it was very disappointing for all of us that we have to go back here. But we appreciate all that the pandemic team does, because you said it, Dr. Grover, we were one of the few schools similar in size that were actually open all last year, because we know how important that is for our children. And that is our goal again this year. And we just can't beg people enough. We've got a solution. Please get vaccinated so that we don't have to continue to do this. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guhar. I have a couple other things. Sorry. You may have received an email today from the Nebraska Association of School Boards. They will be hosting a member update from UNMC on Monday at 10:30, and I would encourage you, if you're able to attend. It's always great for you to kind of hear the information firsthand. UNMC is certainly one of the organizations that we look to for information. Also, if you have questions, I think they're open to taking your questions and so forth too. And if you gain any information or if any questions pop up for you after you listen to that webinar, because we'll be in cabinet, so I'm leaning on you all to kind of listen in and let us know if there's anything that you'd like us to take away from that call on Monday. Okay. And then I also, Isabella did note that we have our football game on Friday at home. Looking forward to all my peeps to be at the game. But maybe you didn't know that we are selling tickets for the nice purple chairs. Are these like prime seats, I guess, at the stadium? And they're only $6. And so everybody's saying it feels like a college atmosphere. So if you'd like to purchase tickets for the prime purple seats, $6, you can contact the communications department. They will assist you in securing those seats. Also, the Island Express is now open from 7 a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m. And so you can stop by and grab some coffee and bagels. And that concludes my report for tonight. Thank you.
2 comments. If you go to the football game tomorrow night, take water. It's going to be a hot one. And there was the nicest comment on Facebook about someone that went to Islander Express, and just really complimentary of the kids who serviced them. And so that's just so, I'm so happy they are open this year. That is so awesome. Mrs. Albers.
And they have decaf now. Not that that interests me, but that will get my mom there, so.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. All right, thank you. So action items, 10.1 is the 2021-2022 Safe Return to School Resolution that Dr. Dexter shared with us earlier. Dr. Dexter, did you think of anything else you wanted to share with us?
No, we just hope we don't have to use it, but when we do, it's going to have to be like immediate.
Yeah. And are there any questions? Did anybody come up with any questions since then? Okay. Mrs. Albers?
I make a motion to approve Safe Return to School Resolution number 202109009_2 as presented by Dr. Dexter.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Barsonis. Any discussion? Just one comment I would like to make. You're right. We hope we don't have to use this. I just, since this whole pandemic started, like in March of last year, I'll never forget how quickly things moved. We had kids in New York City right when it was hitting, and, we were going to bring kids back to school after spring break, and then, within a weekend, we had to change our minds. And so it is so fluid, and it moves so fast. And just like we said earlier, we thought we were done in June and July, and how quickly things changed again and stuff. And so to keep our kids safe, and it really is the fact that it's a community health issue. And the decision I make impacts Mrs. Albers, impacts Isabella, impacts Mrs. Juergens. And so we're just really trying to take care of all of our children. And just thank you again, the pandemic team, for all that you do. So, Mrs. Albers.
And if I can just add to that, we have a lot of parents that absolutely have to work to put food on the table, to pay their rent. And if their kids are not in school, then they're not working. And then there's food scarcity and housing becomes an issue. So this is such a community issue, because we are trying to take care of the kids, because the parents need us to, so that they can provide for their families. And so it's not just about wearing a mask in school. It's about allowing parents to be able to do what they need to do to provide for their families.
Mr. Helinski.
And just kind of add to that, Lisa, I was one of those parents that was with the kids in New York City when this all went down. So I know how it is, and I actually get the opportunity to go with my son this March, so hopefully there's no big pandemic that we come home to. The kids on that trip were really, really scared. I mean, frighteningly scared, and so were the parents and the teachers that we were with, and they really had to look to us for guidance on what to do. And I think a lot of the students are still looking at some of these teachers and some of these administrators on guidance on what to do. We need to really step back and just take a breath and look at what we've accomplished, number one. Number two, just to address some of the things that were said earlier, number two, this is not about money. Number three, this is not something we just snapped our fingers and decided. This was put out in July when we were celebrating too early, that the threshold was going to be 50 per 100,000. And where are we at, Mr. Gilbert? To 267,000 per 100,000, or 267? Something like that? 270? 293, thank you. I'm throwing numbers out. 293 per 100,000. And correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Dr. Grover, we even went over that threshold a little bit before we decided to mask, because there's some other things that we need to keep in considering too. So this is all about keeping people safe. We need to stop politicizing it and go from there. Those are the rules. The rules have been set. They were set in July. 83% of the people who took that survey agreed with it. So we need to move forward from there. Just for the record, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hawley.
I'd like to commend Dr. Grover and the pandemic team for what they accomplished. I know that when COVID hit, it was a very fluid situation and things were moving fast, and we had a lot of things that needed to happen right now. That being said, I think that even though Delta is different than what the original COVID strain was, we have a lot of things in place that going forward, I would like to see less delegation to the administration, and I'd like to bring some of those decisions back into the boardroom. So I'll be voting no on this resolution, but I do want to commend everybody who's taken a part in this. I sincerely appreciate how much you care about our children.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right. Okay, any other discussion or comments? All right, please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, our proposed budget fiscal year 2021, 2022. Dr. Schroeder, sorry.
You're fine. You can even call me Ken if you like. All right. So the budget hearing was held on September 2nd at 6:30 as required by law. The budget workshop was held immediately prior to that. The publisher's affidavit for that budget hearing is attached to this agenda item. The budget document that was reviewed by the board and by the superintendent at the budget hearing and budget workshop has not changed and is attached to this agenda item. Do you have any questions for me regarding the proposed 21-22 school district budget?
Anybody have any questions? All right, I would entertain a motion then. Mrs. Albers.
Approve the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget.
And is there a second? Second, Ms. Wolf. Any discussion? Please vote. Okay, thank you. 10.3 then is the proposed tax levy fiscal year 21-22. Also, Dr. Schroeder.
Okay. The 21-22 property tax levy hearing was held on September 2nd, immediately following the budget hearing. A publisher's affidavit of that public notice of the property tax levy hearing is attached to this agenda item. The property tax request has not been changed or modified since it was presented to the public, the Board of Education, and the superintendent. The property tax resolution for the 21-22 budget is attached to this agenda. I would respectfully request that you approve the 21-22 property tax resolution after it has been read aloud by Dr. Brose.
Okay, go ahead.
Resolution number 1 for setting the property tax request. Hall County Public School District 2, also known as Grand Island Public Schools. Whereas Nebraska Revised Statute 77-1601.02 provides that the governing body of Grand Island Public Schools passes by a majority vote a resolution or ordinance setting the tax request. And whereas a special public hearing was held on September 2nd, 2021, as required by law to hear and consider comments concerning the property tax request, now therefore the governing body of Grand Island Public Schools resolves that 1, the 2021-2022 property tax request be set at General Fund, $38,976,388. Total Bond Fund, $6,262,626. Fourth Bond, $3,111,517. Fifth Bond, $3,151,109. Special Building Fund, $374,733. Quality Capital Purpose Undertaking Fund, most commonly known to us as QCPUF, $1,124,318. All total funds, $46,738,105. 2, the total assessed valuation of property differs from last year's total assessed value by 6.31%. 3, the tax rate which would levy the same amount of property taxes as last year, when multiplied by the new total assessed value of property, would be 1.182605 per $100 of assessed value. 4, Grand Island Public Schools proposes to adopt a property tax request that will cause its tax rate to be 1.247105 per $100 of assessed value. 5, based on the proposed property tax request and the changes in other revenue, the total operating budget of Grand Island Public Schools will increase last year's budget by 8.87%. A copy of this resolution will be certified and forwarded to the county clerk on or before October 13th, 2021. I would move that we adopt this resolution.
And is there a second? Second, Mrs. Albers. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we will move to committee reports. The first one is Finance and Facility, Dr. Bros.
Thank you, Mrs. Hinkle. I'll be reporting minutes from the meeting that was held on Tuesday, August 31st, 2021. Dr. Schroeder reviewed the bills listing as he always does every month for our review. There were no requests for proposals this month. In terms of information technology, Mr. Gerhart reported that technology has been deployed and some issues are being addressed. The changes in the IT department have been met very positively. Mr. Gerhart indicated that the district has received $530,000 in E-rate funding for GISH and for rewiring the district. The funding was received and approximately 30% of the wiring has been completed. Dr. Schroeder indicated that a transfer of $300,000 from the IT general fund to depreciation is made to complete projects that have not yet been completed. A report from Nutrition Services. Mrs. Spellman reported that they've been able to hire several people to fill vacancies. That's been a monthly issue at Finance and Facilities, that we have not been able to get people to work for us. And she was thankful to the board for approving the wage increases that we just approved last month, I believe it was. On the day of that meeting, she had over 8,000 lunches served, and the number of students eating at school this year has increased. Internal controls for federal, state awards, contracts, agreements, and memorandum. We looked at that earlier, or approved that, I believe, on the consent agenda. Dr. Dexter reviewed policy 4312, internal controls for federal and state awards. The policy was recommended is needed because of ESSER funds and other federal awards that we received. Dr. Dexter also discussed policy 4480, contract agreements and memorandums of understanding. The wording added to the policy that the superintendent or designee can approve a contract that is up for 18 months or less. VRIP, Dr. Schroeder just talked about that, and we met with the attorney who told us about the constraints of that. We reviewed the depreciation and special building fund. We reviewed the general fund and payroll. We reviewed federal programs, as we always do. One of the concerns, the Regional Planning Commission notices that we've received a request for a residential property TIF. And we preferred in the past that TIF not be allowed for residential projects, because no tax dollars are collected to educate the students who come from those residences that are taken care of through TIF. It was determined that a meeting should be set with Mr. Navity and the city to discuss how TIF projects affect the school district. The city is being reactive to a housing study that showed a lack of housing in Grand Island. We applaud that. Dr. Schroeder will reach out to Mr. Navity and the city administrator to set up a meeting. We discussed security at school board meetings. We also discussed the Blue Cross Blue Shield lawsuit. Dr. Schroeder has filed the claims on behalf of the district. However, individuals who wish to participate will neither be encouraged or discouraged by the district. That decision to participate in the lawsuit will be made by each individual person affected. Dr. Schroeder reported that the district has received an ESRP for the 2018 school year, and that has to do with IRS. He is working with the Perry Law Firm on this issue. We also looked at the annual review of purchasing limits. Mr. Petch has informed us that the limit of $30,000 for the last 3 or 4 years has been adequate. However, it is becoming increasingly difficult to be able to purchase things that are necessary for the district with that $30,000 limit, and he has requested that we increase that to $35,000. ELC financing and closing. Dr. Schroeder reported on the closing of the O'Connor Learning Center. Lease payments to the Central Nebraska Educational Agency will begin on September 1st and will be $45,000 a month. Esser's 3 potential building project list. It's potentially possible the district will receive $8,825,828. That could possibly go to facility upgrades. He reviewed each of those upgrades by building. No project has been approved. We looked at change orders for the Memorial Stadium project. Mr. Petch reviewed the punch list for the O'Connor Learning Center, said it was looking good. He said the exterior is getting behind. The exterior punch list has not been done. The playground canopy has not been completed, and work continues. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 28th at 7:30.
All right, Leading for Learning Committee. Does anybody have that report? No report need, okay. Personnel Committee, Dr. Bros.
I'll be reporting on the meeting that was held September 2nd. Our Chief of Human Capital, Kristen Irie, presented a general update of human capital activities and an outline of some of the objectives for the department and the district as a whole. An HR strategic plan for the district is being developed with a particular focus on recruiting methods and internal processes and procedure. Any recommendations for this long-range plan for the Human Resources Department and upgrades to maximize resources and efficiency will come back to the committee. One of the areas that is being looked at is Human Resources Information System, an applicant tracking system, and an internal learning management system. Yours truly raised the issue of substitutes and how big the staffing pool and the challenges that the district is facing. The district will look at many different options for recruiting and retaining qualified substitutes, and the Personnel Committee has asked that we have a monthly report update on the fill rate for substitutes. Ms. Irie provided a general staffing update about recruitment activities, and we looked at that in the staffing report. She specifically talked about the Director of Communications position, which continues to remain open. However, she assured us that the district is getting qualified candidates. We are not going to rush the decision to hire that individual. Our next meeting is October 7th.
Mrs. Albers for Public Relations and Partnership Development Committee.
I have 2 reports. The first one is from our meeting in August. We talked about the health standards, which we now know that the state board has set aside. So I'll just move on from there. And then we also talked about our Safe Return to School survey, which about 85% are comfortable with the plan. And that's really all we talked about at that one. So, and then the next one. The Beat on the Street, we're hearing more support for the mask requirements, especially as cases are rising. Communication plans for improved board engagement. You know, how can the board get out in public and meet with more parents of students who are attending Grand Island Public Schools. Talked about the vaccine clinics. There was one held, oops, just lost them, sorry. There's going to be one held at the football game tomorrow, and there was one held at Bar on September 3rd. We talked about the health standards again, and then there were some flyers being handed out at some of the elementary schools, and some people thought that they were coming from the school, so we sent a message out to parents that they were not, in fact, coming from the school. The communication team started using a new platform for staff newsletters, and the feedback's been very positive about that. And then they're sending a survey to students about extracurricular activities, and this has to do with our long-range goals of extracurricular excellence. And so Dr. Grover is going to speak with the communications department about the board engagement and maybe get back to us with some ideas. And our next meeting is Friday, October 8th.
Did you need to mention something about?
Yes, let me make a correction, an update actually, about the vaccine clinic at the football game. We did decide to cancel that one. However, we will have one that will be open to staff, students, and the community, which will be on September the 27th at the Early Childhood Education at the O'Connor Learning Center. So it's going to be a great opportunity for people to come in, see it, and also take advantage of the vaccines. Thank you, Mrs. Albers.
Yeah, good idea. All right, the Grand Island Public Schools Foundation report, Mrs. Jurgens.
Thank you. Yes, we met on August 18th at 5:15 via Zoom. The foundation staff and board met with organizations operating under our umbrella on Thursday, August 26th to review policies and procedures and build relationships. The organizations that currently operate under the GIPS Foundation's umbrella include booster clubs, special project clubs, and other ongoing philanthropy-funded ventures. The foundation has opened the online classroom mini-grant application. This round of grants shall be for projects that will benefit students after November or during the spring or summer of 2021. Classroom grant requests will be accepted through September 30th. The foundation will undergo our annual audit next week, and who doesn't love an audit? The foundation board hears a report each month of the opportunities or emergencies being funded with various foundation funds. As school has started, these requests have picked up, and the stories would put a lump in anyone's throat. We are grateful to be able to help. The rededication of Memorial Stadium on Sunday, August 22nd was a fantastic event. Thank you to all of the Board of Education members who volunteered. It really was pretty fantastic. And those cookies were kind of amazing. I've never seen anything like that in my life. The foundation is expanding our team. Per recommendations from our strategic planning process, we have developed the annual giving coordinator position to help take us to the next level of support of the district and students. This position will be open until it is filled, and the foundation board will review and accept the annual operating budget for the 2021-2022 year at the next meeting. And our next meeting will be September 15th at 5:15, also via Zoom. And that is my report.
All right, thank you. Governance Committee, Mrs. Albers.
So we spent a lot of time talking about the sign-up sheets for those individuals that want to address the board, and then just also how we're going to run the public speaking portion of our meetings, which you saw tonight, things we discussed and things that were put into place. Changing what was on Spark. Sorry, I just lost my report. I don't know. What is happening with that?
Something keeps, mine keeps flashing, it goes away, I don't know.
So really, we spent a lot of time on that, and you saw it living and breathing today. And then just a topic that we're going to talk about the next time is board recruitment for those individuals that decide not to run again.
Thank you. 11.8 is the GNSA Legislative Committee report. I can just share that today Angela Amick, who is our lobbyist in Lincoln for us, was here. And so those of us on the Legislative Committee and Dr. Schroeder and Dr. Grover and Mrs. Worthington were able to meet with her, and it was good. She shares what she's kind of hearing, even though legislature is not in session. We know the redistricting is taking place, and then we just kind of talked about things that we need to gear up for, because this is the second year of the biennium, and so things that were already teed up last year are going to come right away in January, so we've got to be ready. We talked about if there was any possible legislation we could bring forward or help, and it was a really good discussion. And then I know she went and toured a school after that, and so it was nice to have her in the district and get to talk to her. Anything you want to share about legislative? I know you had a legislative committee meeting in July. You maybe already shared that.
Yeah, we talked about that. It was just good to have Angela here, and it kind of brought the fire back a little bit. I was like, what are you doing, Dave? It was just good to have Angela here. She's an upper, and she has a lot of energy. She has a lot of information, and it was just kind of fun to talk about all of those things that are going on, and to help get some strategies of some things we might want to look into this year.
And the district is well served by her. She is there 24/7 when our senators are there and others, and she doesn't hesitate to get involved with conversations that are in the best interest of Grand Island Public Schools.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so the NASB monthly update, it's attached there. We each get them email, and there's a video, and you can look at that. And then I also know that the what are they called? Area meetings are taking place. There was one last night in Kearney, and then York's is
Wednesday the 15th.
And I know Mrs. Albers and Dr. Grover went last night. I mean, would you encourage others to go to York?
Yes, absolutely, because you get to meet. Because you get to meet people from other districts. I met a board member from Minden and then superintendent from Minden last night. We just happened to be sitting at the same table, and that was kind of fun and interesting to talk to them and some of the things that they've gone through this past year in addition to COVID. And then the topics were really interesting. Dr. Grover and I sat in on the first one, just about kind of recruitment on personnel, trying to get more teachers and options that we have, and then we divide and conquer on the last one, and went to a couple different sessions. But they're well run, they're interesting. I always enjoy that meeting.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Dr. Brose.
No, I'm going next Wednesday.
Oh, you're
driving us?
I'm so glad you brought that up. It seems like I'm going to have to because I'm check and roll. But no, I do think that you will enjoy the sessions. One of the ones I attended was about the upcoming legislative session. And I think it just gives you some great insight and allows you the opportunity to kind of talk with other board members on the front end, share things about Grand Island Public Schools, but also just take away. And then you also realize that most districts, we all are faced with some very similar challenges, and it definitely allows us the opportunity to look for solutions together. So, and I know we have some first-time board members, so I guess that's why I'm taking the time to say, if you can make it, please do. And you do earn your professional learning credits, because I always want you all to make sure you get your awards when it's time to recognize, because we do have a very involved and engaged board, and we like to keep up that record. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, well, notification of board meetings. Our next meeting is October 14th at 5:30 p.m. And look at this, we are adjourned. 7